in no time. Yeah, it says we're on air, but there is a time lag, as I said. So we are talking now, and it will be on YouTube a minute later or something. Okay, guys, we do have a webinar today. It's again on a Hangout. So, which is a new technology, and somebody who's been here many times before, they know we used a different system, flash-based system, which was technically much less advanced. Hangouts is much better, but I don't know if I'm expressing everybody's opinion. I was kind of closer to the people, so for example, I could see everybody who's registered and what countries they connected and everything, and I'm missing it, for example. So I decided to change a little bit of format. So I decided to ask somebody, and Hangouts actually allowed up to 10 people with a camera and microphone. Here, obviously, the speaker is here. I'm as a moderator. I don't moderate really, but yes, still has to be here. So we have eight more. Today we only have one guy from audience. It's our good friend. He probably, Dijan, how many times you've been here? I don't know, 20-something webinars?
More or less, yes, 20.
Yeah. Okay. So well, it sounds great. So he's been here more or less from our beginning. We started at the beginning of August, doing 2-3 webinars a week. Okay, guys. I hope you gather in. And by the way, if somebody wants to be here, which means you can ask questions or comment after the Danny's presentation, just shoot me an email or write in comments, or you can do it next webinar. We have like 7 more places, but it's not a speaker's places, it's an audience place, but closer to the speaker. Okay, we have Danny Ashton today. He's from Manchester, England, and he will be talking about ideas, creating ideas for any audience. I hope we all enjoy it. So, okay, Danny, it's all yours.
Okay, cheers, thank you. So I'll just share the screen, so please shout if it doesn't work, which is always useful. So let me entire screen. Okay. Everyone good? Everyone can see the screen? I'm going to assume so, but yeah. So this presentation is basically about how to create ideas for any audience, and what it does is it utilizes the process that we use as an agency. And so I'm going to be sharing all the different steps that we go through. So if you're running an agency or you are doing it for yourself, you can take out this process and then make it your own, and make sure that the biggest problem many people have is just sitting down and thinking, what do I create? What content am I going to do that's going to get some engagement? So first, a little bit about me, because you might be thinking, well, I don't know if this guy's, I don't know whether to trust this guy, whether he knows what he's talking about. So I am the founder and CEO of NeoMam Studios, and we've created around 1,000 pieces of content, primarily infographics and video, since we first started. And through all of this, we've learned a lot. So we've made many mistakes, and we've had some great wins, but actually in many respects, the mistakes are what you're going to benefit from the most. And as part of that, we have had the opportunity to work with great clients who have tested us and meant that we've always had to keep improving our ideas, so they don't just meet the expectations of the agency, but they meet the expectations of large global brands. And the more important thing, which if you're in SEO, this is the thing that really matters, is that our content does get results, and it gets results every single time we produce a campaign for a client. And so that's our primary focus when we create content. We're not an agency that's just about creating a blog post or creating a piece of content that's just going to sit on the site. Maybe a few people look at it. Every piece of content we produce has to perform, and performance we mean placements on the largest tier 1 media placements that we can get. So that's the kind of the focus. So if you're watching this and you're wanting to maybe you've created content before in the past and it hasn't quite performed, or you're just looking to create content and you want to get these type of placements, you want to get featured in the Daily Mail, the Telegraph, the BuzzFeed, well, I think you'll hopefully get a lot of value from this presentation today. So the first thing I'll say, and I know everyone says it, but there is no magic bullet. This presentation is around 45 minutes long, so there is going to be a lot of different aspects, and there'll be a lot to take away from it. But there will be a few things that you can probably take. But the one thing I want to make sure is that this is just the idea. So we create the infographics at the end of this, but you could create any form of content at the end. And the reason that we create infographics is, based on our research, we don't see any form of content sharing as well. But that does not mean that you can't create video, that you can't create blog posts, or use any format. The format, for the most part, is dependent on what you've got access to, your budgets, and what you feel comfortable with. So don't feel that you have to create something that's really, really expensive at the end. You can just use the ideas, and you'll get just as good results. So the first thing you need to ask, and this is the biggest challenge probably with every client that comes to us, is who do you want to speak to? Who is your audience online? And with most clients, they say it's an easy answer. It's our customers. But the reality is that it's not just their customers, because the web is a large place, and with many clients, they just have a very small customer base, and that's just not going to be enough to actually get them placements within media. So we need to ask, who do we want to speak to, and where can we find them? And what I always I show this chart to everyone, and it really shows what the type of people that we're trying to get to. So, most clients will sit on the point of saying, well, it's going to be these customers, these are the primary people that you would target with advertisements. So you're looking to target, someone who's looking to maybe choose you over your competitor, or they're at that very late stage of that buying cycle. When actually, content in the respect that we're creating for works really best at being at that top of that funnel. So this is the type of content. So there's loads of different types of content, and there's loads of people who can tell you more about those areas, converting leads, generating prospects, and generating customers. But actually, the primary aim of the content that I'm going to be teaching you about is generating traffic and awareness. So just to always keep that in mind. We're not looking to, often the biggest mistake people make is the idea that one piece of content can generate awareness, get picked up by media, and convert visitors to customers. And it just doesn't happen. If it did, I'm sure there'd be plenty of people selling it. But as we know, if you've worked in this sector for any amount of time, you'll know it is hard. And actually looking at them as different groups is very important. So this is a great chart that I came up with, which basically highlights the problems that many agencies and clients suffer from, and that is, if you're the business itself, you want to create content that's about what you want to say. So you want to say how great your business is, you want to show about all the benefits that your product has or service, and then what your audience wants, your digital audience, is they just want to look at content that they're interested in. And so you've got these two key areas really, and our challenge as content marketers is to really find this section in the middle, and it can be quite thin, and it's often a big challenge to find ideas that are important to the business, so they support the business's objectives, the brand objectives, but they also coexist with what the audience cares about. And I'll go into a little bit more detail. So this is an example situation with a client. Let's assume they create these nice things on the side, motorcycle valve trains. So then they say, okay, well, we create these motorcycle valve trains. We got to create content about motorcycle valve trains, because that's what our customers are interested in, and that's probably where our audience is, we think. A quick search on Google, we can quickly see that there is. And I don't need to search this on Google, but we know there is no community of motorcycle valve train enthusiasts. And obviously I've chosen this product to make a point, but in most cases, these audiences for products don't really exist. They may exist for some very top products like MacBooks, iPhones, and what have you, but in most cases, most businesses and services and products don't have a community who are just talking about that. In most cases, they're fulfilling a problem of a wider audience. So then we go on the other side. What let's just produce content that everyone's interested in. And you could end up by producing all these mad memes that don't really mean anything to your business, but they get shared around and everyone's talking about it. And there is a real challenge with that. First of all is that if you decide to go, right, we're going to try and create the most viral topic on the web today, you're going to be in for some competition, because that's what every big publisher out there is doing, every site is trying to achieve, and they're going to be, in most cases, have bigger budgets than you and have more experience, and so you're going to find it challenging. That's the first hurdle to overcome. But the second hurdle, and this is probably the most important one, is does your brand want to be related to something that's unrelated to their business? So if you're a motorcycle valve train manufacturer and you're talking about the latest iPhone release, does that make sense? Do you want your brand to be known as an expert in the the iPhone space, or do you want to be an expert in a more relevant space, motorcycles, engines, and what have you? And in most cases, companies want to be relevant to their product, because you're going to be driving a lot of people who are going to be interested, and we want to make sure we get the most of it. So, as you can see from going for these two objectives, doing content that's just about what you want doesn't work, and vice versa. Doing content that just the audience out there cares about doesn't work for you either. We need to find that point in the middle. So this is a tool that I think is amazing at really helping you to really understand the different groupings that exist. And what it requires, and it's two very simple questions that you need. If you're an agency working with a client, then you need to ask these. If it's your business and it's your company that you're working in, you need to ask this of yourself and of those working in the business. And the first thing is, who are my customers? So we really want, we're not product centric. We want to just talk about our product, that aspect of that buying process. But actually, who are the people that are going to buy our product? So are they accountants? Are they HR managers? Are they travelers? Are they people who own a motorbike? These are very interesting points, because we can use that. And then you ask the question, what product is we sell? How that is important. Without that, we can't be relevant to the end result where we want to get, which, let's be honest, we want to sell more of our product. That's why we're producing the content. We're not doing it for the good of mankind. We're doing it for a marketing goal, an objective. So chunking is a really great way of breaking down concepts or ideas into more specific parts, and also more abstract. And it allows us to open up our mind to lots of different ways of looking at a product or a customer, but also still understand how that relates to our pre-existing business. So I'm going to take you through a little bit of how we chunk up and chunk down. So let's use the example we had before of the motorcycle valve train. Now, in this case, we know there is no real community for it, for valve trains. So what we can do is chunk up. When we chunk up, we're really looking at what is it a part of. Each question is kind of asked. Valve train is part of a cylinder head. A cylinder head is part of an engine. It's part of parts. It's part of motorcycles. Going even further, and this could be a bit philosophical, motorcycles are a part of getting around, and that's part of movement, and everything always comes down to the final point of existence. So, with a very product-centric, if let's assume from an agency point of view, you have a client who's very product-centric, they want to create about the product, but you need to be able to explain to them, how do we find an audience that exists that is still related to that product, but has a bigger option. So, for example, cylinder head, there's probably no community there. Engines for motorcycles, potentially. Engine parts, maybe. Motorcycles, definitely. Getting around, even more so. And then as we go even further up, movement and existence, you then start to get into that realms of competition and trying to cover too many bases and not being relevant to the brand. But in the next slide, you'll see chunking down can be very useful. So, often I use this as examples when you have a client who just wants to talk about anything viral. And actually, what we really want to do is we want to go further down the chain. So, covering everything doesn't make sense. It's not viable. It's not a viable strategy. So we can go further down this process, and we can actually see what makes more sense for that brand. That brand talking about content around movement in transportation in general is probably not going to be super relevant, whilst talking about motorcycles is probably, you know, there is a big enough community there, and there is also a relevancy to the, you know, the product, which is, you know, valve trains. So I think that kind of, obviously I'm using a kind of very, you know, an example that's very clear in many respects, but you can apply this to any product. So add your product and see what happens. Now, I've actually built a tool to help you do this. I know it's a very simple process, but this tool, we've got it on our site now. There's a bit.ly link here. I can certainly share that in the chat. But it's just a very simple tool that allows you to chunk up and chunk down. And what it really does is you enter your keyword, your product, your audience, and then it asks you questions. And it's just really it's just a tool to help you think. It doesn't do any more than that. So it'll ask, you know, what is that a part of? Can you be more, you know, what's the meaning of this? What does this lead to? And so it enables you to quickly take your product or your service or your audience and then just go up and down that chain. So I'm going to assume now that you've opened up this chain. So you've found different categories, and you want to know. You know, there's no point using just your judgment and saying, well, you know, there's no motorcycle audience. You really want to know, is there an audience out there? And the easiest way to do this is a tool called BuzzSumo. You may have heard of it already, and it allows you just to basically add that term, search for that term, and then it sees the content that is shared in that space. So we can see with small business, there's a really large community out there. You know, the top searched content is in the 45,000 total shares. There's 1,255 pages of information. So we know there's a massive audience out there, and obviously that, you know, just from a common sense point of view, that makes sense. There's many small business owners and there's many publishers out there, so we can know that content in this space is likely to do well if we were to create it. But let's take another example. We have a client who mines copper, and we search for copper mining, and straight away we see a completely different story in BuzzSumo. There's only 3 pages, firstly, compared to the, you know, the thousands upon thousands, tens of thousands that were on the last page. And we also see the total shares amount is limited even for the top one. So even as you go down, there's less than 100 shares, and most of it's just kind of mining related, and it's not, there is no active community. And again, common sense means that it's not, but actually you'll be amazed at some things that you think there is a community and there isn't, and vice versa as well. You know, things that you think, oh, there has to be a community about that, but there really isn't. And you have to always test yourself with these tools to actually have the data to change your view of the world, because, you know, we all have our views and we all have our judgments, and we have to always question them. So you've done the chunking process, you've taken your product through, you've opened up different potential audiences, and you've tested some audiences, and you've found an audience or two that you like the sound of. So it's relevant to your business, but it has a large enough community that means that you're not setting yourself up to fail, which is often the biggest mistake I see with any sort of content. It happens at this stage. So if you're going to do anything with any content, just learn this bit, and I promise you, you'll get a massive loads of success than learning the latest trick on video design or what have you. Because you want to set yourself up to succeed, not fail. But we only have now a community, an audience. We don't have an idea. So we really need to, you know, have a look and actually dig deep into this community and find out what they care about. Because we want to use the data that's already out there, other people's content experiments, other publishers' data, to actually define the idea that we create. Because again, we want to set ourselves up to succeed. So a quick search for food supplement tips. We've got an audience who's in the food supplement sector. We know that there is an audience out there, and we want to take the process through. So we search for this, and we see that there are a number of big publishers in this space and different types of content that's already working. So Google's a great way of just getting information really fast. And we can also use BuzzSumo as well, and we can again see what content people like. So we're looking for bodybuilding. We're seeing the content, all the content here is the highest shared content. So morning stretches, 10 upper body exercises. These are all things that are going to be new data that's adding to us. We want to understand why does this content perform, and what is it that we can use in our ideas to help us get similar success. And we also want to dig deeper. So if we see a piece of content that is successful, is relevant to the audience that we're targeting, we want to look at it and try and break it down. So this is a piece, 12 mind-blowing muscle-building protein shakes. Firstly, we see that they love lists. Lists seem to work really well with this audience. And we also see the use of images. Now, obviously, in most cases, this is obviously very, very common sense, but actually different audiences like different things, and you really need to dig deep into to find out what works. You might find that one format really works. It might be video, it might be listicles, it could be loads of different aspects. And we also see that practical value works really well with this particular audience. Now what you want to do is go through the entire set of content to actually dig deep and look for those connections. So it might be that practical value is coming up again and again, or it might be that humor is something that you want to look at. But we need to let the content itself tell us that, because these are all learnings that we're going to use when we actually develop our ideas. There's another area that you can use, which is Reddit. So we're looking at a client in the food supplement sector, and we search in there. We just do a basic search at the top if you've used Reddit before. Nothing mind-blowing. Don't even need to be logged in. And straight away we can see that there are subreddits, which are communities within Reddit that are that we've already seen that are regularly coming up. So we see our fitness. Change my views, probably not as relevant as we could imagine. And we want to then dig a little bit deeper into these communities, because these communities are where real people spend their time sharing tips, content that they like. So it's a great place for us to learn something for when we create our own content. So let's have a look in our fitness, and let's dig a little bit deeper. The first thing you'll see with Reddit, which I think is the best thing about it, is that the content is all ranked by a very quick glance what content's working so hard. And so straight away you can go in there, you can even look at the top of the week, the top of the year, the top of the 6 months, and you can start to, again, as we did with the content before, start to write down what is it that people are sharing, what are the themes that can continually come up again and again. So again, you can do the same process. The content you find on Reddit is you can apply the same process that you find from Google or BuzzSumo. We want to look at, again, practical value, again, images. So if this was a continued theme that was coming through, we'd want to make sure that we were doing something practical value inspired, and we'd be damn sure we're using images, because that's the type of content that this audience really likes. And we even look at some of these other content, and we can see other areas like unexpected health benefits. If this is something that is coming up again and again, we can use that. Looking at a donut with a burger, which does look quite nice, I have to be honest. And you have to repeat this process. So this isn't just we're not looking at one piece of content. We're looking at lots of content, and it really I have to kind of push this. It is a long process, and it does take some time, but it really pays off dividends. And if it is a business that you're in, it might be that this is a process that takes a couple of weeks for you to really understand what your audience cares about. You could have reams and reams of information, but that information is probably going to be set for the next 6 or 12 months, and that's going to be what's going to set your strategy moving forward with your content, because you're going to finally understand and not have to experiment, as most people do, with producing content. Does it work? No. Does it work? Yes. Do more of that. We're just going to remove that process, which is very expensive, and do a new process where we understand before. At this stage, all I'm using is time. I'm not spending any money on designers, copywriters, any of that. I'm just using time, and it is a very good use of your time. Another area that I always recommend is Quora, and the reason is, again, similar to Reddit. It has an active community, so these are real people talking about what content they like or what issues they care about. So it's a really powerful way of learning more about your audience. So again, we're looking at the food supplement sector. We're doing a very general search, and we're looking at what's coming up. So what are the questions? What are the answers that are the most popular? And then we can use that to again say this audience really cares about issues with health issues, for example. Again, you might say, well, that's common sense, but we're really uncovering this for real. So again, you dig a little bit deeper, and you can go, you can get under the skin of what this community cares about. So this is some in-depth research that I did, looking through. These are just the questions that are out there and the answers that came through. So which food supplements do you consume and why? There's 10 answers to this. You've got people proposing all the kind of scientific questions. What are the sources of vitamin B12 for a vegetarian? And again, large amounts of research from some of the answers on there as well. From often, many of the people are experts, which is great, on any food and drinks or supplements to increase blood oxygen levels for exercise. So again, this is all information that we've got a far greater view of what this audience cares about than we did before. It's unlikely that you would have thought, what sources of vitamins for vegetarians, probably something that you wouldn't have thought about before, but this has active people caring about it, and it could be that we can add some content that can support this issue and add value so that we can become that resource in future. Now, there are a few other places to check out as well. I'm a big fan of the Meta filter, which is basically it is a closed forum, so it's quite hard to actually get an account in most cases. I might be wrong, but it was a few years back. But we mainly use it to really look at, again, similar to with Cura, what are the questions that people are asking about? So what does our audience, what are the problems, the issues, the things they care about that we can uncover and learn about to help us develop our own content? Ask Meta Filter is great because it's similar to Cura, the answers are usually very, very valuable. So they can actually be a starting point for you to do your own research, which is great. And you can even uncover stuff in the answers that can help direct into new ideas as well, which is really powerful. So if you've got clients in the lifestyle space, Ask Meta Filter is amazing, really, really worth checking out. Now, the other question answer site, one of the biggest, is Yahoo Answers. I will warn you, unlike Cura and Ask Meta Filter, the answers are often very inane and have little or limited value, and there is a lot of questions that are just puerile and very stupid. So, you're not going to be getting that kind of that depth that you would get with the other two systems, but what it is very good at is the sheer amount of questions. So you could look at some of these categories, if you're in the beauty and style business or health or food supplements, as we talked about, you could really find out, there's 100 questions about this issue on Yahoo Answers. Many of them were not answered correctly. So actually there's an opportunity there for us to create some content that's going to set the record straight and actually be a piece for people to engage with and converse with. So now I know this process seems quite in-depth, but I actually created a blog post that kind of goes through this entire process. It's about 2,000 words, so it is a bit of a read, but feel free if you want to check that out by going to that bit.ly link. And basically it's all about step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. So if you're interested, feel free to check it out because it can be quite a complex process, but I always think it's best to have a process is always be having a go yourself and not knowing what to do. So at this stage we have now got we understand, and I call it a dossier, so we know what the problems of our audience are. We know the type of content they like. We understand the types of the elements of the content they like, the type of titles that they enjoy, the type of the format, is that they like infographics, they like video. We have a thorough understanding of the publishers in that space. So who are the big publishers and what is their best performing content around the things that we care about? At this stage, and at this stage only, is when we start the brainstorming time. The biggest challenge I found with brainstorming is that it's done too early on, especially in content, because brainstorming is usually for problems that we truly understand and we've got too much data and we need to pick through it. So you may have an issue with the office and you want to decide how do we lay out the office, for example, and we know about the office, we know all the issues, and actually we're just brainstorming options. Whereas with content creation, what we really lack is data. So we often don't have the information to perform brainstorming correctly because we don't really know that much about about what we're actually trying to create. So often what happens is you get 5 people in a room and everyone just comes up with the same ideas. And I've seen it again and again with team members and with clients. And because it all comes down to often your view of the world and your understanding of that subject. And that just isn't good enough, because especially if we're creating content for different clients every week, we can't rely on our own knowledge. It'd be great to find this expert who knows about everything, but in reality, everyone's going to put their own judgments to it. We need a way to get as much data in the process, and that's why this whole first stage is about analyzing the content that's out there, finding out what communities really care about, and then we're ready to brainstorm. So some tips for brainstorming is, it seems simple, it seems common sense, but get a good whiteboard with nice pens and nice post-it notes. I know it seems silly, but these things matter, especially if you're getting a couple of the team involved. You want to make it easy, because your brain won't like to do this stage. It feels hard. It's a lot harder than just checking out your emails. You're kind of giving your brain a workout, but it can be really fun. So do keep it fun, and this is not the stage to shoot down ideas. So don't, if someone comes up with a wacky idea that is completely ludicrous, that's fine, write it down, and we'll filter it later anyway. We don't need to worry about filtering at this stage, because the biggest challenge you'll have at the brainstorming stage is automatically filtering the thoughts before you put them down, and then you'll just, you'll try and write something and you won't write anything, and that's the kind of worst place you want to be for coming up with ideas. So I have a very simple process for brainstorming, because I think brainstorming that's too free and too open can be very challenging for people to kind of get involved. So actually what I do is say, look, how can, there's 3 areas we want to look at, and the first one is how can we expand it? So maybe we found an idea that works. So this is what happens 1 hour after drinking a can of Coke. You may have seen this infographic, it went everywhere. And we're trying to uncover, our team's trying to uncover, can we come up with, using ideas, this is relevant to our audience, let's assume that, and we want to come up with more ideas that from this one piece of content that we know has performed well. So we know there's something about this that works. So we what we call is we do an expansion. So we really want to expand it out, and it's very simple in the examples. You see, what happens after 24 hours, 1 year, 1 lifetime of drinking Coca-Cola. So we're just expanding the idea to be on a bigger time frame. And what happens 24 hours after drinking 2 liters of Coke? Let's push it to the extreme, see if there's something there. X scientific reasons why Coca-Cola is bad for your body. So again, we're just broadening the idea to be range. Now, I'm not saying that all 3 of these ideas are great, but these ideas are very simple to come up if you just say, look, how do we expand it? How do we expand it? So a very simple process for getting many more ideas from one piece of content. The next stage is what I call the switch and swap. So we take the idea, and then what happens after 1 hour of drinking Coke? Okay, someone had already done this, so this was great. Someone had done what happens after 1 hour of eating a Big Mac? And this is quite common with viral pieces of content. People will just swap it out. And there's no reason why you can't do that with other forms of content, just to uncover if those ideas work or not. So what happens after 1 hour after drinking a pint of beer, eating a Pizza Hut pizza, etc.? What happens after sitting for an hour at work? We've completely changed that to not even be about food. What happens to our body 1 hour after receiving an email? So again, 3 more ideas that are kind of broadly related to the original content. And obviously, if this content's related to our audience, as we did before, then these could be ideas that are relevant and potentially get us thinking in a different way. And it's very easy to do, and that's the reason why we do it. And the final piece is improvement. And this is something that we've been doing for a long time. We want to improve on the idea just a little bit, and it might be just the functionality, it might be the design. In many respects, you could find a very good blog post, and you could make that better by turning it into a video. You could turn it into an infographic. You could turn it into a quiz. You could turn it into an animation. The world is your oyster, and you're able to just provide an improvement to the audience. You're going to benefit from the success of that it's previously proven, and you're going to add more value. So it's going to go, hopefully it's going to continue that success with very little creativity. Let's be honest, we're not doing anything more. Coca-Cola quiz on how Pacific intake affects your body. That's something that is related to this idea, but it's not particularly mind-blowingly creative from this original idea, but you could really see that doing quite well. And that there was something about this content that performed. This is still sticking to that heritage, that pedigree, but bringing something new to the audience, because we don't want to just rip it off completely, because it just isn't going to work. you producing what happens after 1 hour of drinking a can of Coke in the exact same way is just not going to perform. An animation and how it's working. A guide to giving up Coke. Again, it's just taking it that next step, and it allows, especially when you're working with teams, to really brainstorm in a way that that makes that's easy for people to do, and you're not going to have a real problem when you come to brainstorm again next week. Now, this is just an example of one piece of content, and we've already come up with 9 ideas. And I honestly, these 9 ideas happen in about 5 minutes. And I'm sure you could do it with any other piece of content that you came across. And you can see that actually you really want to develop a quantity of ideas, because that's going to then help you when you come to the next stage to filter those ideas. Like I mentioned before, we're not filtering ideas at the at the brainstorming stage. We're filtering them after we've got them all written down. We may have hundreds of ideas. We then want to go through and go, does this work? Does this make sense? So I'm coming to the end, and it's a little bit quicker, but no, that's not to worry. I always think that's good to be effective. But I would say, the final point I would say about ideas, it is hard work. And if it's something you don't enjoy, and it's something that you feel that is a chore, it's probably something that you should give to someone else. I think I do agree with that in that, but I also take the point that if you teach people the process, it is enjoyable, it is fun, and actually when you get into it, you're going to actually create some amazing ideas. You're going to get the success that that we've managed to get, and so I'm going to leave it over to questions now. I'm going to stop sharing the slides, and then we'll move back to the video.
Okay, great. We have very interesting webinar, and we have somebody who joined us.
I can't hear you. I don't know. Oh. Oh.
Yeah.
I can hear you now.
Can you hear me now? And we have new person, Alexander, and okay. Alexander, did you mute your microphone or something?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I can hear you. Well, anyway, you have your question. You just shoot. Just ask your question.
Look, English language has like international status language. I have plans to make international content for our website, including infographics, video, and etc. My question is, what kind of type of English language we have to use for making the content? It's using UK language or US language? I mean English. It means like content making for international audience. It's not for one country. This is my question.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So one of the things that we found is, we do quite a bit of our content where we'll actually create it in English, and then we'll translate it, and then share it in other languages. I would say if you're doing it the other way around, so you're taking it in a non-English and converting it to English, I think it's completely up to you. I think the biggest audience is US. So if you want the biggest reach, then you put it into US language. But in most cases, if it's a good idea, it wouldn't really matter. So we've produced stuff in UK English because we're a UK agency for our UK clients, and we've shared it, and it's shared well within the US. So I'd say it's a small thing, and it's nothing to worry about. But if you if you want the wider appeal, and you go for the English that your preference of the publishers. So most of them are in the US, then choose US English. You'll just make your life a bit easier.
It can't be this language like you can. Okay, how you moment? How you? It's not difficult for you, like English person, have communication with your US friends, and you have some kind of difference. I mean, what you expression, what you saying, like in you, everybody understand very well. I mean, they live in US, speaking like US. You are living in UK, you talking like UK, but in any direction, you understand one another is completely good.
Yeah. So do you mean? So are you create? So do you want to create content for the English language as well? Is that right?
Right. I wish to create for an English language like around the world, but I try and every time I achieve the one goal, everyone should to be understand, everyone should to be easy to find my content and internet. So this is a very big goal what I take care, and this is one reason why I ask you.
Yeah, yeah. No. It sounds good, and I would certainly say the 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 potential of just translating the language that the content that you've already got, if it's at the right level, is massive, because you really can. I mean, we've had some really good success with Spanish, converting our English speaking into Spanish speaking, and getting some great results. So same in Italian. The only issue I would say is German. We've tried German; it didn't really work. So you're going to find problems, but yeah, it's a great way of getting value for money, because you've already created the hard bit. You've done the idea, you've done the content. The translation is relatively, I'll say, cheap, but it's not the biggest expense that you're doing if you're designing an infographic or what have you.
I understand the question was about Alex was asking if American and British English, if you understand each other correctly. And I leave it to you. I just remember one thing. I don't know if you remember that. I was a few years ago. Jerry Springer were doing shows, but in UK. With UK people, and I was a guy and a girl. A guy said, "Oh, I kiss her in a flat," and Jerry Sprinkle just froze. He said, "Why did you kiss her?" Oh, he obviously meant he in a flat, in a block of flats, And Jerry Sprinkle didn't understand it. It was really funny. It was really funny. So the question, if I understand it correctly, correct me, Alex, if I'm wrong. The question was about, or you Brits, you English, how easy it is for you to understand Americans and vice versa.
Yeah. So I mean, I would say from a promotion point of view, from business point of view, it is relatively easy, because often, when we're talking over email, we will probably use less of our slang terms and our strange terms. But I found it when I used to be a link builder, so that was just hitting out sites, basically just getting them to link to my affiliate sites. I used to use English terms, so I used to say, "Oh, I think I'm being a bit cheeky, but what have you," and Americans used to love it, because for them, they imagine, and I think, and I'm so not all Americans, but many Americans assume that we're all sat with the royal family drinking tea, and we're all dead nice. And the reality is, obviously, you guys know that's not true. But you can play it up a little bit. So we don't try to pretend to be something else. Or I would say, from my personal experience, though, going to the United States, I've had massive, because I'm from Manchester, so we have a slight accent with our T's. So I spent about 20 minutes trying to get a glass of water in a restaurant, because he just wouldn't understand me. He just didn't know. I was like, you have to say water, water. And so I would say that there can be some lost in translation, but I think over email it's not so bad, because you can adjust your localisms and your accent quite a bit, because you have to make it clear. But yeah, I think that if we had to do it in person, maybe there'd be a few more. But I think we have a good relationship, so it's not so bad, I think.
Okay, I don't know how much did it answer, Alexander. If you want a follow-up question, you should. Dejan, do you have any questions?
Not particularly something serious. I only want to ask Danny, do you eat Big Mac and drink Coke?
Well, I do. I used to work at McDonald's, so I do like the double cheeseburger. So, but I don't eat the Big Mac. But the double cheeseburger is, a guilty pleasure of mine. I keep off the Coke. I've been off Coke for a while.
Everybody knows that very bad food for the metabolism and everything. But everybody like.
Exactly. You've always got that day you haven't got time, so you think that's why fast food's still here. But I mean, I was looking at research and showing that the amount of fast food people are eating has gone down significantly over the last like 10 years. So it is changing.
Yes.
But they call it now, I think it's like posh fast food, so it's like more expensive fast food, so it's a little bit healthier. That's where that's where if you want to do some content, do about that.
Okay,
Nice
guys,
idea.
who watching us online, you can still ask a question. Just write them in the comments in our webpage. It's where you're watching it. If you're watching it on YouTube, write in the YouTube chat, which is on the right side of the screen. Or so far, I can't see more questions. Guys, do you have more questions? Alex, Dijan? Okay, I'll leave one stupid question for myself. So sorry about that. Are you Man City or Man United, man?
Oh, nice question.
Yeah, this is always the question. It's always the hard question because, and this isn't going to make you like me. So I don't like football in any way, which is very hard for people to understand. Being in Manchester, because I can see the Manchester City ground from my window. So I probably
You're in the center of Manchester, then.
I know, so I can't. But yeah, I've seen both teams. I don't know. It still seems boring to me, but.
Okay, are you a rugby man then?
No, I'm not a big fan of sports. I'm I'm very
sport,
geeky.
okay.
Video games and sitting at home is pretty much my.
Okay, guys, do we have more questions? If you have more questions, shoot right now. If you don't have questions, okay, we have to. Okay, before we go, if people would have more questions to you, because people will not only watching it right now, they will be watching it recordings, because it's very convenient. How can they contact, if they can ask you questions? How?
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter at Danny Ashton, no spaces.
Could you could you show it's on our screen? Any chance?
Yeah, let me just find. Share that. So yeah, it's at Danny Ashton. So feel free to go on there, and you can also ask me some questions, and you can find our blog at neomam.com/blog.
Okay, you can ask him Danny question using Twitter. You can write it to us. And I'm pretty sure, and you can say, oh, I watched your webinar and I didn't understand that, or I have follow-up questions, something like that. Okay, guys, I cannot see more questions. No questions. Okay, if there is no questions, Danny, thank you very much. It was very, very interesting webinar. Thank you for awesome webinar. I shouldn't say awesome for Brice. I should say what brilliant webinar, isn't it? It's a brilliant. It's not awesome. Awesome. I will leave for Americans. Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you for everybody who were with us tonight. Today depends on your time. Danny mentioned BuzzSumo, and we will have BuzzSumo, director of BuzzSumo, on Monday with us. But we still have another webinar, and blogging webinar is tomorrow. Okay. Join us. And thank you very much. Thank you very much, Danny, again. Thank you, guys. Thank you, you guys. You were brave, guys. Alex, you're a very brave man. Yeah, and
thanks.
Yeah, and thank you, everybody. Thank you, guys. Thank you, and goodbye.
Thank you for new technology, Anton.
No, you can stay.